What's up, guys? It's John Dominique, the Soul Proponent. Today, I want to talk about looking for God on a more of a beginner-friendly basis because my message is kind of like more of an introduction to the soul, and I see a lot of people making mistakes and there's misunderstandings that I'd like to address. I think it'd make things clearer for rookies and people who are just beginning to become aware of the soul. A lot of rookie atheists are always asking for evidence. Give me the evidence. Where's the evidence? Well, we need to understand why there's no evidence, because the evidence gets us, not the other way around. As soon as we ask for evidence, we're separating ourselves from the evidence. We don't think the evidence is inside us. We think it's outside us. We think we can get it from someone else. The evidence is an interior experience of spiritual awakening that happens inside our own consciousness, inside our own hearts. So there's no evidence to be given. There's no evidence that can be had. The evidence gets us, not the other way around. So there's misunderstandings. As soon as someone asks for evidence, we know that they don't understand. And without understanding, there's no awakening. And the thing is, this is a path. It's not going to happen. People say, oh, I tried it. You might have tried it for a couple of days, but you didn't actually go on the path and actually practice the practices without end continuously. Because if you did, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And if we quit, if we tried it and then stopped, then our hearts were not in the right place. Our intentions were not pure. Our motives were not oriented in the right way. As soon as we decide, oh, we're just going to do this for a while, or wait until we get something and then we'll be done with it, that's not it. That's not the orientation. Our orientation has to be forever, to be on this path, to never end, because we become one with foreverness, become one with forever in itself. And if we can't do that, then we simply won't have the awakening. That's the kind of mentality and the attitude we have to take. A lot of rookies, they just want a quick fix. They think they can do it overnight, snap of a finger. This is a lifestyle. This takes years. There's yogis in India and places in the mountains where these people have been practicing meditations for years, Buddhists, for lifetimes. This is not something that's going to happen overnight. It takes years of practice. It takes a dedicated understanding. Now, there's some times when it happens spontaneously. I don't know how that happens, but you need to ask someone who's had a spontaneous awakening and ask them how that happened and see how that works. But for most normal people like you and me, the average person, it's not just going to happen. So it's a misunderstanding to think it's just going to happen. That's one of the when we're looking for God, that's one of the misunderstandings that rookies run into, that amateurs experience. We have to understand that being a rookie, being an amateur, being a beginner is just a stage in learning. Some people judge themselves because it feels like it's going to make things worse, like things will never improve, just recognizing and seeing how stuck we are and how embedded the ego identity is entrenched in our psyche. It seems like nothing will ever happen, and we have to have some compassion for ourselves and allow ourselves to experience the beginning stages fully, being an amateur, because that part, usually when you're beginning something, you're not very good at it. Like if you just start to learn how to play an instrument, the very beginning stages, you're not going to be very good at it. Or for learning a new sport, learning a language, we have to kind of allow ourselves to go through that stage and not be disheartened and just continue to practice in our own development. It's not a race. All right, if we're comparing ourselves, we're ending up judgment, and judgment is the downfall of mankind. So we need to be aware of that as a beginner, as an amateur, as a rookie on the path to the soul. Yeah, I mean, again, we have to have some compassion for ourselves, because the way of the path is not knowing. And that not knowing, it's very humbling to the ego personality. The ego personality has a mind that has to be fixated. It has to know, it has to reach, it has to grab, it has to do, it has to accomplish and acquire. It always has to be doing something. The mind has to always be thinking. It's a process. And as soon as that stops, we see how feverish the need is to have needs. We see how attached we are to our attachments and how dependent we are on our dependencies. And that's not an easy place to tolerate, and not an easy thing to tolerate and to see and understand and to accept in its entirety. And again, people will just do it a little bit, and then maybe 3 weeks later they'll be done because it's too difficult. So we need to see that and allow that to happen. If that happens, allow it and see it. And if we're going to go back on the path, we need to pick up where we left off. And that's kind of how the path starts. You're not going to, a lot of times you're not going to do it all in one sitting. It might take a couple of months here, and then take some time off, and then come back, and it'll come back. You'll pick up where you left off. So we need to allow that, taking a couple of steps forward, take one step back, or vice versa, and allow that to happen, because it's not a linear process. So the situation can seem dire because it just seems like nothing will ever change. Like the attachments are so deep and we can't shake the attachments. The ego identity seems so strong, there's no way to break free from it, but there is. If you continue to follow the truth, the spiritual awakening will happen as a side effect. It's not the main event, as many rookies and amateurs, they assume that awakening is something to be found, something to be had, something to be, you have to put some effort, you have to try. That's not it. It's a matter of undoing the need to try, undoing, reversing the tendencies of the ego to survive, its instincts, its avoidance practices, the need to avoid vulnerability. And we can notice this in ourselves as we walk the path, that we're always trying to avoid, we're trying to repress, because the practice, the path to the soul is directly the opposite of the ego identity. And that's how we can be aware that we're making progress. When we see our resistances, we see how badly we're trying to avoid things and we're repressing. We know that we're making progress when it's painful. Our pride is hurt. We feel wounded. We feel incapable. We feel deficient. That's when we know we're making progress. So being a rookie, a lot of times when you feel that pain, I don't want to do it. That's where we need to actually put in the work and go further and put in more effort to put in less effort, in a way. The way to see it is kind of like, it's not putting in effort, it's letting go of the need to put in effort, and that resulting state of emptiness and nothingness becomes intolerable. We just have to allow that, have compassion for ourselves to be able to hold that type of a state. It's not about jumping to conclusions. A lot of rookies, amateurs, and beginners on the path just think they already know the answer. Oh, this is not working, this is not it, there's no God. That's not it. If we're not consistently continuing on the path to truth forever and with the intent of never quitting, then that's not the path. If we think we have the answers already, that's not it, because we don't have the answers. The path is more of going to create more questions. It's not about trying to get answers, it's more about getting more questions. It's very counterintuitive. And if we stop practicing, that kind of shows us that our intention was not to follow the truth forever, because truth is forever and we're one with forever. If we stop the practice, then our intention might have never been. Look, I'm not here to tell you what your intentions are. You need to find out for yourselves, but you need to do a self-examination, become radical about it, and become radically honest and see what it's about. So look in your own heart and see if you are trying to get something out of it, because that attitude of trying to get something is not the path. That's going to actually entrench us further and make things worse. So trying to get something, a lot of rookies, beginners, amateurs are always trying to get something, trying to go somewhere, putting forth effort, trying hard, searching, seeking. That's not it. That's going to put us the direct opposite of the path that we want to go. So we need to be aware of that. It's a matter of undoing the path to the soul. It's about reversing the tendency of the ego identity, reverse engineering this identity, seeing where it comes from, where's the instinct coming from, what's my motivation, examining on the inside. It's an interior process, 100% internal. And it's a matter of staying where we are. So a lot of times, if we look at ourselves on the path, we don't want to be where we are. We don't like it. We don't like not knowing the answers. We don't like it when we feel cut down, because that's what the path is going to do to us. It's going to diminish us, put us in the background. We're going to be made to feel incompetent. And people don't want to feel that. That's why people avoid the path. The cost is very, 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 very high. It's a matter of we're going to end up losing our identity. It erases the identity. But again, we can be compassionate enough to allow this to happen and just allow grace to occur in our lives and to experience it for ourselves. At the beginning, it's going to be difficult. We're not going to be able to do it. It's going to be too scary. Nobody's going to want to go near it. That's the basic, usual attitude. But in the long run, if you keep at it, your attitude might get reversed. It might become upside down. You might start to say, oh, I like this. I start to crave it. And you start to see that your efforts are kind of rewarded. Like you go to the gym, you're building muscle, you hate it, you don't like it while you're doing it, you feel sore when you wake up the next day, but you start to see some results. And that's kind of how the path works. It's a kind of a feedback. It feeds on itself. It's a feedback loop almost. So, a lot of rookies, a lot of amateurs, a lot of beginners on the path of the soul, they have all these misunderstandings and these ideas that they can actually get something and accomplish it. No, that's not how it works. It's a matter of letting go of the need to accomplish. You can't get the evidence. The evidence gets you, not the other way around. We need to be aware of that. If someone asks for the evidence, we need to see that if they ask for the evidence, they don't understand that you can't get the evidence. The evidence gets you, not the other way around. It's internal experience inside our own consciousness. So how can you give an experience that's happening in my own consciousness to someone? How can you prove that? You can't. You have to just walk the path to truth, and the awakening happens as a side effect. That's how it works. So I hope this helps clarify some misunderstandings on the path of the soul. John Dominique, the Soul Proponent.